Bruchim Aboim, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha, Parshas Vayeira, the Baal Haturim on Parshas Vayeira. Well, we have 15 minutes, and in this short amount of time for this week, the approach will be, let's try to get a hekuf, let's try to get a broad knowledge of a number of important comments that the Baal Haturim makes on the Parsha, with the emphasis on trying to find the comments of Divrei Chazal, merumas in the Psukim. So we have 15 minutes. Let's try to share 15 ideas of the Baal Haturim. Vayeira elav Hashem be'eloinei mamre. Well, what was Rebbeinu Shem doing? Why was Hashem appearing to Avraham Avinu in Eloinei Mamre? What's the opening Rashi on the Parsha? Levaker es ha'chola, to be mekayim the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. We're enjoined Mahu rachum afata yehi rachum, mahu mevaker cholim. Just like the Rebbeinu Shem visits the sick, we too are commanded to visit the sick. Says the Baal Haturim, the gematria of Vayeira elav Hashem be'eloinei levaker b'choila. So the comments of Rashi are merumas in the gematria of those very words, levaker b'choila. And why was Avram Avinu sitting Yoshev Pesach ha'ayel? Rashi tells us, to see Leroisim Yesh Oiver V'Shav Yachnisam B'Veisa. Avram Avinu was waiting to see if he could be Mikayim the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim. Says the Baal Haturim, Yoshev Pesach ha'ayel lehachnis es ha'orchim, gematria, to bring in the guests. Now there were three people standing. Who are these three people? Rashi quotes from the Medrash, three malachim, Michael, Gavriel, and Raphael. Says the Baal Haturim, V'hinei Shaloisha is gematria, Elu, Michael, Gavriel, Uriphael. Now it's interesting, just as a side note, the brother Maral of Prague teaches us that when one learns Gemara, they're surrounded by four malachim, Gavriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel. Gemara, Rashi Tevos, these four malachim. Interesting here, that in this scenario, we have Michael, Gavriel, and Raphael. Where's Uriel? I once on the Sefer Imrei Noyam of Jacob, Avram is gematria Uriel. So instead, in lieu of Uriel, we had Avram himself. Okay, then Avraham says, Yukachna me'at mayim. And Chazal say, since Avraham said al yedei shliach, it should be brought, therefore we got water through a shliach, and Avraham hit the stone, and water came from there, and actually that later became Vayeira shel Miriam. Wow, that's what the Gemara in Bava Metzia says. Peivav Amud Beis says the Baal Haturim, Yukachna ma'at mayim is gematria mikan zachu lebe'er. From here, they merited the well. Okay, we move on to offering number 5, Parak Yud Ches, Pasuk Zayin. V'yel habakar, Ratz Avraham, Avraham ran to the bakar. However, Chazal tell us that in Pirkei Rabbi Elazar Perek Lamed Vav, that where did this cow run? And Avraham chased it, and he, by going to this location, he realized the sanctified nature of this spiritual location. Avraham ran to the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, and Avraham ran after this cow into the tomb of the patriarchs. So it says about Haturim, this is also merumas in the pasuk. V'el habakar could be read, the word habakar could be unscrambled. V'el hakever ratz Avraham. Now, the pasuk says, V'hu oimed aleihem tachas ha'etz v'yochelu. By the way, there's an amazing Tosfos. Balei Tosfos says that Avraham Avinu hovered over them tachas ha'etz, instead of a tree, in place of a tree. The sun was so strong, and Avraham Avinu didn't want them to be uncomfortable, so he stood over them in place of a tree. Vayochelu, and they ate. Vayoimru elav, and only then, after they ate, they said to him, Aye Sarah Ishtecha. Says the Baal Haturim, this is merames to that which the Gemara says, teaches us in Tainus, that ein mesichin besuda, one cannot converse during a meal, shemayakdim kane laveshet, and this is learned out from the fact that only after vayochelu, then vayoimru elav. We're up to offering number 7. Chadal lihiyos l'sara, it ceased to be for Sarah, oirach kanoshim, the way of women. This, of course, refers to her cycle, her menstrual cycle. The Baal Haturim says this is also merumas. Oirach Kanoshim, using the system of gematria of Rashi Tevois and Soifei Tevois, Aleph and Ches, Rashi Tevis and Sevatevis of Oirach. Rashi Tevis and Sevatevis, Kanoshim is Gematria Nida Male with a Yud. Okay, now Avraham Avinu at this point was infertile, was not capable of producing children. Avraham was impotent, and that too is merumaz in the pasuk. Vadoini zaken, my master is old, says about Haturim. These words are gematria toichein v'loy poilate, that Avraham Avinu was not physically capable of fertility. Now we move on to offering number 9. Parak Yud Ches, pasuk Yud Tes, that Hashem says, I have to tell Avram what I'm going to do to the city of Sidon, ki yadativ, because I love him. Why do I love him? Lama'an asher yitzaveh es banav, because he will command his children to guard the path of Hashem, to do charity and justice. However, the Baal Haturim says it's not just that Avram will teach his children to guard the path of Hashem, but actually these words, Asher Yitzaveh Es Banav is Soifei Tevois Torah. Avraham, who was Zakein V'Yoshev V'Yeshiva and observed Kol HaTorah Kula even before it was given, will command his children to follow that derech after him. Asher Yitzaveh Es Banav Soifei Tevois Torah. Asher Yitzaveh is Gematria Torah and Gematria Bris. Okay. Let us move on. Parak Yud Ches, pasuk Chaf. The pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem zakas doim va'amayra ki rabba." Their evilness, that it is very great. But Rashi says this is specifically referring to when Hashem said, "Eradana v'yera hakitzakasa haba elai asu kala." If the outcry that came to me, in fact they did, this is referring to a specific incident where there was a young girl who they killed because she gave food to an ani, and they killed her b'misa mashuna, they covered her body in honey, and until she was completely destroyed by the sting of many, many bees. And this woman is referred to as Riva Achas. Says the Baal Haturim, Ki Rabba is Gematria Bechet Riva, because of the sin of a young girl. Okay, we move on to offering number 11. Now, it says that Loit fed the Malachim, Parak Yotes, Pasuk Gimel. Vayivtzar Yisrael Umatzois. And Lot gave them matzos. Now Rashi says, why did he give them matzos? Rashi quotes the Medrash Seichel Tov, because it was Pesach. Just because they ate matzah, does that mean it has to be Pesach? Maybe matzah was for sale in the local supermarket. So the Baal Haturim says, no, it's more than that. The word umatzos is found twice in the Masorah. The Masoretic note indicates that the word umatzos appears twice. Here, umatzos afa and umatzos Sli Eish Umatzois. This teaches us that it was Pesach. So that which Rashi writes as a tradition is merumaz in the common phrase Umatzois. Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Yud Beis. The Malachim say to Lot, Oid mi l'chafai. Who else you got here? Who else? You have sons, daughters, sons-in-laws, daughters-in-law. What were they getting at? Says the Baal Haturim, Milacha Pai. Pai is Gematria Bayaz, meaning this is a remes to Bayaz who would come from Lot. And perhaps they were Merames, as the Hafla writes and the Baal Nasivas Hamishra, when they said, don't turn around. You see, Lot wasn't really worried that he would be destroyed because he knew the Malchus Beis David would come from him. So they said, no, don't turn around. Don't start thinking who's going to come from you, and therefore you don't have to leave the city. So they were asking, look, we know and you know who's coming from you. So get them out now. Whatever shoresh of Malchus Beis David you're aware of that's living in the city, take them out now, but because they're not going to be saved. Perek Yud Tes, Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Offering number 13. Interestingly, this pasuk begins with the letter Hey and ends with the letter Hey. Hashem yatsa al haaretz v'loit batzayara. What's the significance that it begins and ends with a Hey? To teach that Lot traveled 5 milan, as the Gemara says in Psachim Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis, before the sun arose. Before Hashemesh Yatsa Ala Aretz, Lot had traveled 5 mil. We go on to Perek Yud Tes, Pasuk Chaf Vav, Vatabed Ishtay Me'acharav. Now, anybody know a little trivia question? Who was the wife of Lot? What was her name? Chazal say in Perek Rabbi Perek Chafei, her name was Iris. Vatabed Ishtay. Ishtay is Gematria, he Iris. She is Iris. Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. Vayisa Perek Chaf Vashem Pakad Es Sarah. Vashem Pakad Es Sarah. Chazal say in Bereshis Rabbah, not only did God remember Sarah, but He remembered all barren women at that time. This too is Marumas, and the Pasuk says about Haturim Pakad Es Sarah is Gematria. Av Kol Akaros Pakad. God also remembered all of the barren women. 15 offerings of the Baal Haturim Parshas Vayeira. I'll throw one more in, no extra charge. Pasuk says, Va'toimer mi milel le'Avraham, says the Baal Haturim. Interestingly, because Rashi says the same thing, milel is Gematria 100, to teach that when Avraham was 100, Sarah gave children, was able to nurse children. Okay, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu be megala einenu to see further wonders of TorahAnytime HaKadosha. Wishing everyone a wonderful week. Yemalei Hashem kol meshalois libchem l'taiva.